Okay, so let's talk about doping in semiconductor, especially silicon. Let's assume a silicon lattice structure where the atoms are represented by these black dots here. This is just a representation. Actually, it's three-dimensional, but I'm just projecting in a two-dimensional space. Each of the silicon atoms shares one electron with the neighboring atom. So, for example, this atom here shares an electron with the neighboring silicon atom represented by this brown arc, and this silicon atom shares an electron represented by this brown arc. Similarly for these sides. So each of these atoms are sharing 8 electrons in its outer shell, and hence they are stable. Now let's say we bring in another atom which instead of 4 electrons, free electrons at the outside, has 5 free electrons in its outer shell, and we replace one of the silicon atoms by this new atom. Right. So 4 of these electrons will form covalent bonds with the neighboring silicon atoms. So this is the new atom. This electron is shared with this atom. This electron is shared with this atom. This electron is shared with this atom, and this electron is shared with this atom. Right. So 4 of them are used up. The 5th electron is actually free. Right. It's free to conduct current. So the blue arcs now show the shared electron bond between the new atom and the adjacent silicon atoms. So these electrons are tied in covalent bonds now and are not generally free to move. It takes more energy to break free from these covalent bonds. Whereas this 5th electron is now free to move. It's not part of any covalent bond. And this free electron is responsible for conduction. You can see it's free, it doesn't take much energy to move it around. Right. This type of doping is called N-doping. The atom which actually donates this electron is called a donor atom because it donates an electron to the lattice structure. So we have seen the doping with an N-type atom, a donor atom. Let's see what happens if the same silicon lattice structure we dope it with an atom which has just 3 free electrons. Right. So previously had 5 free electrons, now we have an atom which has just 3 free electrons. So when you dope it with this, these 3 free electrons will form bonds or form covalent bonds with 3 silicon atoms in the neighborhood. Right. So this atom, since it has 3 free electrons, forms covalent bonds with 3 silicon atoms. The 4th one, it won't be able to form, because there is no free electron here. So this absence of an electron in a covalent bond here is called a hole. Hole is not a particle by itself, as you notice. It is an absence of an electron in the covalent bond. Okay. Can holes conduct current is the question. Okay. Are they useful in conduction at all? Okay. So as we've seen in the previous lectures, a bond is nothing but a shared electron between 2 adjacent atoms. Right? If you give it some energy, either through heat or some other means, it is possible that this electron actually breaks free from this covalent bond and traverses the lattice to come to this bond. Right? So this electron from this bond took some energy, got free, and traversed to this hole here. And when it comes to this position where there is no bond, it can form a new bond here. So it looks like as if the hole has moved from this location to this location. The neighboring covalent bond now has become a hole. So hole has actually traversed from here to here. Thus we can say that the hole is moving. This type of atom is called an acceptor atom because it accepts an electron, and the doping is called a p-dope. So what is the use of this dopings that we've been talking about? Before we get into the actual physical realization, let's just take an example. We'll take a simple tax example in a city. Right? Let's assume that the city has 10,000 people, and the per capita income of the city is about rupees 1 lakh. That is, each person earns about 1 lakh of rupees. To govern this 10,000 people, the government has a tax rule which says that below 2 lakhs they will not tax anybody, but people who are earning about 2 lakhs, about 30% tax, 30% of the income as tax. Given that most of the people are average income is about 1 lakh, it is highly improbable that too many people will be about this 2 lakh bracket. So the amount of money that the government collects as tax is actually going to be pretty small. Now, to this city, we add in a set of professionals who are highly paid, 100 highly paid individuals. And let's say the salary per capita income of this set of people is about rupees 30 lakhs. This is a large quantity compared to the per capita income here. Right? Now the tax, now let's take a look at the tax revenue. Right? The tax now becomes pretty large. It's 30% of 30 lakhs, which is about 9 lakhs, into 100 people, which is about 9 crores of money. So you can see that the tax money actually has now increased significantly from a very small tax money to a large tax money, even though the number of people who are paying the tax is much lower than the base population of the town. In the example that we talked about, in the real situation, this base people is like the silicon atoms. They actually contribute very little to the number of free electrons. This tax money is like the number of free electrons. They actually give very little to it. But the doping atoms are like these high paying individuals who actually contribute to a large amount of tax money. This tax money, again, as I said, is equivalent to the number of free carrier electrons, free electrons which can actually conduct in current conduction. So very small number of people, very small number of dopant atoms contribute to a very large amount of tax money, very large amount of charge carriers. Right? So let's say we dope silicon with phosphorus. Phosphorus, as we said, had 5 free electrons. Let's say we dope with 10 power 16 atoms per centimeter cube. Remember, silicon atoms had 10 power 22 atoms per centimeter cube. So we are doping 6 orders lower than the density of the silicon atom. Right? It's like in the previous example, it was 1/100th the number of people who had higher paying jobs. Here it's even larger, 1 million times smaller. Right? But each of these phosphorus atom will form 4 covalent bonds, as we've seen before, and has 1 free electron. Since each one gives 1 free electron, the total number of free electrons now becomes 10 power 16 per centimeter cube. Okay. In the native silicon, when there was no doping elements, you saw that the number of free electrons was just 10 power 10, or the order 1.5 into 10 power 10 per centimeter cube. There is a number of silicon atoms, 5 into 10 power 22 atoms per centimeter cube. There is a number of free electrons, 10 power 10. You can see how low it is. It's just like in the tax example, this is the total number of people who are lower income, and this is the tax collected from them. They were much smaller. But when the high paying individuals came, they paid a tax which was much larger. You can see that here also. It's a million times larger. The number of free electrons suddenly becomes million times larger, though the number of donor atoms are a million times smaller, approximate order. Okay. The 6th order magnitude change in free electron concentration through donor atoms, and 6th order lower concentration as compared to silicon atom. So the donors who are actually lower in density has increased the number of free electrons in the semiconductor 6 orders of magnitude. Now we can really control the conductivity, right? That is the reason for doping. Another way of looking at it, so what about the number of, another way of looking at it is the number of free characters is increased. Right? So now what happens to the number of holes when the electron, let's say we are doped with a donor atom, suddenly donor electrons have increased. Right? So what happens to the number of holes in such a case? When you started, you had in an intrinsic semiconductor, let's say this was the number of free electrons, the same are the number of free holes, right? Because they were formed only by thermal combination. Okay? There is a law called Moore's law, which I will not derive here. You just have to take it as gospel truth right now, that the number of holes into the number of electrons is Ni square, whereas there is a number of electrons or holes in intrinsic semiconductor. You just take this law as truth for now. We will not derive this. So let's say when we dope Nd with 10 power 16, Na then becomes Ni square, which is 1.5 into 10 power 2 square divided by 10 power 16, which is 2.25 into 10 power 4. So number of holes are dramatically reduced. So the number of electrons significantly increased, 6 orders of magnitude, but number of holes proportionately decreased, another 6 orders of magnitude. Right. Ideally, you would expect all the holes to go down to 0, because you put so much electrons that or some of them will have combined with the holes to make it non-existent. That doesn't happen. You might want to think about it, but just remember that there is thermal energy as well. Right? So while electrons will go occupy the holes, thermal energies will keep creating hole electron pairs. That is the reason why the holes don't go down to fully 0. There is some residual amount, but it's very small, extremely small. So you can compare this with the native intrinsic silicon. Holes are reduced by 6 orders of magnitude. You can see a very small sliver of blue here. But the free electrons have dramatically increased, 6 orders of magnitude from the intrinsic silicon. So if you dope with donor atoms, the predominant carrier is going to be electrons. If you dope with acceptor atoms, the predominant carrier is going to be holes. So 6 orders of magnitude lower free hole concentration than in intrinsic silicon. This is just we saw. The dramatic changes. Even though the concentration of the donor is far lower than the concentration of the silicon atom. Okay. So when the semiconductor is doped with an N-type material, the free electron increases a lot. We just saw that. The free holes reduces significantly. Why does this happen? And we just had an explanation, but we'll just go through it once again. When there are more free electrons, they tend to recombine with the holes. You have to think about what does this mean. This reduces the number of holes. This reduction in electrons as well, but the numbers are so large anyway that hardly makes a difference. So having seen the doping and the carrier concentration increase, we'll just define what is majority and minority carriers. In an N-type semiconductor, we just saw the number of free electrons is much larger than the number of free holes. Those electrons are called majority carriers. And since holes have reduced a lot, they are called the minority carriers. Conversely, in a P-type semiconductor, electrons are the minority carriers and holes are the majority carriers. Both these carriers are responsible for current conduction. Remember this. Both these carriers are responsible for conduction because they are available to conduct. It's just that the majority will carry a whole lot current more than the minority. Why would minority carriers matter for conduction when they are so small in number as compared to majority carriers? You might as well say they are so small, why bother about it? Right? To understand this, we need to understand the current conduction mechanism in semiconductors, which will be the topic of the next